Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a unhaul video. I'm actually going to the used bookstore that I sell my books to, and then they give me like credit so I can like buy new books. And so I need to bring these in really bad. They've been sitting in my office forever and it's time to get rid of them. So I'm going to show you guys all the books that I'm getting rid of. There's a stack right here. Whoop. That is the stack I'm getting rid of. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. We don't need a long intro, and let's talk about the books I'm getting rid of. So as you guys know, I am not somebody that keeps books around that I just don't love. I've never been somebody that needs to collect every single book that I've read. It's just not necessary to me. I like to keep the books that I really like, or keep books on my shelf for a while. Like if I just read it, I'll like keep it on my shelf for a while, and then once I like my attachment kind of goes away, I just get rid of it, if that makes sense. So the first book is The Lost Ticket by Freya Sampson. This one is a little bit destroyed because my cat ate this one, but this one was a pretty good book. I think I gave this, I was gonna give this 3 stars like through the whole reading process, and then the end of this book bumped it up to a 4-star because the ending was like really endearing and cute. This has like a found family vibe. It's very cute and heartfelt. So if you love a heartfelt story, this is definitely a good one for you. I thought it was really cute, but it's just not a book I'm ever going to reread. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one. This one has been on my shelf for years and I've just kind of kept it around. I don't know why. Like, you know when you just kind of keep a book but you're not really exactly sure why you're keeping it? It's Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I read this way back in the day when it first came out in like 2017 or something like that. This was a great book. It's about a girl with OCD and she has to figure out a murder, but she has such a hard time concentrating on figuring out this murder because her OCD is just taking over her brain. And as somebody that has experienced that, I know what it's like to like not be able to concentrate on anything other than your OCD. So I thought this book was really good in that regard. I just don't really think that I'm ever going to read it again, but it was a great book. Highly recommend. It's just not a book that I'm interested in reading again. So, okay, next is a book that I picked up. I can't remember where I got this, but it's called Hello Sunshine, and this is like a cute little like women's fiction type of thing. I think maybe it's a romance. I'm not exactly sure. But I got this ages ago because I thought the cover was really cute, but I just don't really have a desire to read it. I don't know. I think I got this for super duper cheap. I can't remember, but it's been sitting on my shelf for so long and I just kind of am like meh about it, you know? There's so many other books on my shelf that I think I would want to read before this. Plus I looked on Goodreads and the ratings aren't super high on it, so I was just kind of like, the likelihood of me picking it up is unlikely, so gonna get rid of that one. So this is actually a series that I've been keeping on my shelf forever, thinking I'm gonna read the last book. I'm gonna read it, and I keep thinking I'm gonna read it, or I keep telling myself I am, but I'm just not going to. It's been too long since I read the first 2 books, and I didn't even really like the first 2 books that much. I gave both of them 3 stars. So it's almost like I was forcing myself to read the last book just to complete the series, even though I didn't really have a desire to read it, you know what I mean? So I feel like if I just get this off my shelf, it's gonna be like, it's not gonna be like tapping on my shoulder anymore, which is gonna be really nice because I feel like for a long time I was just like, you need to read it, you need to read it. But I don't want to read it, you know? And that is Ash Princess. So I gave this 3 stars. I think I read this in like 2018 or something like that. I really loved the cover when this first came out, and that's why I read it. And I just remember there being some plot holes and stuff in this book, which kind of irritated me a little bit, so that's why I gave it 3 stars. And then I read Lady Smoke as well, and this has like a love triangle type of thing. There's not a lot of romance in this. It's like implied romance, but like there's 0 romance. You know what I mean? It's like she was trying to have like a love triangle in this series, but like you got no like romance elements to it, so you were like rooting for a romance that wasn't even there with any of the characters, but it's like this weird love triangle thing. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it was really kind of annoying me, and I like more romance in my fantasies. It's just what I like, so I think that's why this series kind of disappointed me. And this is Ember Queen, the 3rd book, and this is the book that I'm like, I'm gonna get to it, and then I just never did. So it's time for these to go. I'm just not gonna read them. Ugh. Okay, so next is Einstein's Dreams. I read this last year and I accidentally bought this in German. I'm pretty sure this is German, and it was an accident. I didn't mean to buy this when I bought this in German, so this has to go. She probably won't buy this. I'll probably actually put this, like donate it to Goodwill or something, because I know that the lady's not gonna buy this. Okay, next is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I'm just getting rid of my Emily Henry. Like, I had such a bad experience with Book Lovers. I just really didn't like it, and I know that's like not a good thing to do, to just judge an author by 1 book, but I just don't have a desire to read any more Emily Henry except for Happy Place. I'm going to read Happy Place. For some reason I feel like that book is calling to me, just like the plot and kind of the undertones of that book sound really interesting to me, but I just don't have any desire to read any of her past backlist. So I'm just gonna get rid of them. I found a lot of these at Goodwill. Like this one was only $3.99, so I'm not out too much money with these, but I just don't have a desire to read them. I would rather read so many more romances on my shelf before another Emily Henry. So I'm gonna say goodbye to them. And that leads to People We Meet on Vacation, also by Emily Henry. I've heard that this is probably people's least favorite, but I think with Emily Henry, like everyone has a favorite for whatever reason, like it hit for them, right? Like some people hate this one, but some people love it. Some people hate book lovers, but some people love it. Like it just depends. Like I feel like Emily Henry really calls to a specific person with her books. And if you're not that specific person, then you're not gonna like it as much. You know what I mean? So I'm just not going to read these and I'm gonna move on from them. Next is a book I've had on my shelf for a while, and I was kind of considering reading this series, but then I read a novella by this author and I didn't love it. Like I just didn't love her writing style. There was just things about it that I didn't like, and that is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. So as you guys know, this is a really popular series, but just my experience with her in the past, I didn't really like it, so I'm gonna say goodbye to this one. Next up is The Haunting of Maddie Clare by Simone St. James. So I read The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, and I didn't really like that book. I didn't like it, and I think that some people really, really, really love that one, but I found that I don't really love like crime novels for some reason. Like I like thrillers, and they can have crime elements obviously, but when it's like detectives and like all that kind of stuff, it's just not my thing really. And I think that that's kind of what Simone St. James tends to write. I got this book from a friend and I just don't think I'm going to read it, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on from it. But then you guys are gonna be surprised by this one because this was recently in a TBR that I did, and then I did some research on it and I realized I didn't actually want to read this anymore, and that is Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. Now the thing about this series is I would have read this if the rest of the books were this length. So as you can tell, this is like a shorter book, and when I read romantasy, I really, really love like quick reads, like 300 to 350 page books. I really, really like that length for romantasy. And so when I bought this book, I was like, oh, it's short. Like maybe the rest of the series is going to be this short. But apparently there's like 5 or 6 books in the series, and like the last books are like 800 pages. Like 800 pages for all the books in the series is not something I want to go down. I just don't know if I'm going to be interested in this enough to kind of dive into that like huge of a series. Like I already have freaking Throne of Glass that I have to read. I still haven't read that series. For some reason I love Sarah J Maas and I haven't read Throne of Glass. That's pretty ridiculous. But I have a lot of series that I really want to read that are really long, and this is just not one I want to go down. Then with this graphic novel, I Will Not Die Alone. You guys know I gave this 1 star. I think I read this year. This was just a dumb book. Sorry, it was just kind of dumb. I felt like I was reading like a greeting card. That is gonna go. Then I read this book so long ago, and I've kept this for so long, and I think part of the reason why I've kept this book is because I love the cover. This has always been one of my favorite covers, and it's always so hard to get rid of books where you love the cover, you know what I mean? But I read this, I think, in like 2017, and this is The Vegetarian by Hong Kong. And this is a weird book. Like if you like weird books like Bunny or the Pisces, like books that are just kind of weird, then you'll probably like this one because this is just a weird book. And when I read it, I think I gave it 4 stars, but I think if I were to read this again, I'd probably give it maybe like 3 stars. Next is a book I got in a subscription box that my husband got me, and this has been sitting on my shelf forever because I'm like, I'm gonna read this. I'm going to read this, and I'm not going to read this. So this is A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza, and this is like a family drama, I think, and I just don't have a desire to read this. I have had this on my shelf forever. I always pick it up and like read the little flap on the inside, and every single time I'm like, nah, I don't want to read that right now. And so I just don't think I'm ever gonna like be at a place where I'm like, yes, that's the book I want to read. You know what I mean? It's never gonna happen. Like I didn't even really pick out this book, it just came in a subscription box. So it's time to say goodbye to this one. So next is Insomnia by Sarah Pinborough. As you guys know, I read this last year I read this year actually. And I like Sarah Pinborough. I read Behind Her Eyes, and Sarah Pinborough does really, really unique twists. And this also had kind of a unique twist, but I didn't like it as much as Behind Her Eyes. And this felt very bland. Like I feel like if you've read a lot of thrillers, this feels very like basic sort of in just how the story is told. Like it feels like the same character in the same setting with the same husband and the same kids. Like through this reading process, I was just kind of like, it's okay. I think I gave this 3 stars. So if you haven't read a lot of thrillers, like if you're new to thrillers or you are kind of jumping into that genre, I think this would be actually good. But if you've read a ton of thrillers and you just have so many of them under your belt, I would say skip this one because it's not really anything new. Next is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This one was really good. I really like this book, but it's a thriller, and I know I'm not going to read it again because I just don't read thrillers more than once. But this was really good. Highly recommend this one. I just don't need to keep it on my shelf. Next was Mirage. I DNF'd this book. This book was just not very good for a lot of reasons. This book was too big of a world for the size of the book. Like, this should have been like a huge chunker. This should have been like one of those big massive series with the amount of world building that she did for such a small book, and it was just so boring because she was just trying to cram all of this huge world building into this tiny little book. So it was just like detail after detail after detail after detail after detail, and I was just like so bored with this. So, but I love this cover. This is literally one of the prettiest covers ever. And I actually bought this book at the bookstore that I'm selling my books to, so it'll be interesting if she re-buys this back from me. Next is 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Augustina Basterica. This is a short story collection. I gave this 1 star. This was very, very, very disappointing. I do not understand the point of this book. There was not a single story in here that I liked, but I bought this because I was like, ooh, horror short stories. Like, that'll be really fun. Like, I always think horror short stories are going to be kind of like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which used to be one of my favorite books ever. But this was just too outlandish for me to where I felt like each story didn't even have a point to it, really. It was just weird to be weird, you know? Next is Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. Rupi Kaur is not horrible. Like, I'm really, really, really picky about poetry. Like, I hate like that weird modern day poetry that takes no effort to put together. And I feel like Rupi Kaur does a pretty good job at doing some great poems. Not all of them though. I would definitely read more from her maybe in the future, but like I said, I'm super, super picky, and I think I gave this 3 or 4 stars. I'm not exactly sure, but Christina Lauren, The Soulmate Equation. So the thing about this one is I accidentally bought this twice. So I bought this on Book Outlet, and I accidentally added this to my cart 2 times, and I didn't realize it when I checked out, and so when I got my box, I had 2 of these in there. So that was kind of annoying. So this one's gonna go. I have the other one on my shelf, so. Next is one that I'm really sad to get rid of because this is one of my favorite covers ever, and it is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. So this book, I think I gave 3 stars. This just was super, super underwhelming. I think most people that read this are extremely underwhelmed by it. This should have been a middle grade book, but she tried to make it like older YA, which felt really, really weird and out of place. Like, I was picturing this girl as like a 12-year-old the entire time. It was just not a good book. It was boring. I felt like she was trying to pull like a Neil Gaiman type of thing with this, and it just didn't work very well. So I just feel like this was kind of a flop, but it just sucks because this cover is so gorgeous. So as much as I want to keep this simply for the cover, I'm not going to. Next is Horrid by Katrina Leno. So I'm getting rid of this one. I read this last year, and this wasn't horrible. I think I gave this 3 stars. I just didn't find this to be super compelling. It wasn't really super scary, and I didn't actually feel like I got what I thought I was going to get with this book. Like, I thought this was going to be like this crazy horror, like haunted house type of thing, but it was more of like a coming of age, grieving type of story, and it was just not really what I was expecting for this book, if that makes sense. But I have heard some people really, really like this, so don't take just my word for it. It just wasn't my favorite. Next is Dangerous Girls by Abigail Haas. This is a really good book. So this is a book about this group of kids that went on a vacation together, and then somebody was murdered, and one of the girls that is a suspect goes to jail, right? And so they're all going to court, and they're all telling their side of the story and like what happened. And every single person's story is a little bit different, and so you're trying to like figure out, is this person, the friend that's in prison, actually guilty? Are they not guilty? Like, whose story is more accurate? Like, this was a really good book, and this is a pretty long book, but it doesn't feel long. Like, I read this so fast, and it just felt so like intriguing. Like, I was so into it the whole time, and as somebody that doesn't like crime things and like court and all that kind of stuff, like, I really, really liked this. Highly recommend it. This was really, really good. If you want something that's YA and quick and easy to read, Dangerous Girls by Abigail Haas was really good. I just don't need to keep this around, you know? Next is the Bromance Book Club. I really love this. I think I gave this 4 stars. The only thing about this book I remember not liking was the main character, what was her name? Thea. I remember that name because me and Trav said if we had another daughter, like another kid, we would name her Thea. That was our next name on our list for kids if we had another girl. But the thing I remember not liking about this book was I didn't like Thea. I thought Thea was really mean. I feel like she ganged up on the main guy character, and I just didn't like their dynamic. It kind of bugged me a little bit, and that was the only reason why I think I gave this 4 stars instead of 5. But these are really, really cute. Like, the concept of these books are adorable, with like the bromance book club where they read romance novels to like learn what their, you know, wives would like or whatever. But I just never continued on with this series, and I just don't think I ever will continue on with this series, so it's time to get rid of this one. Again, not that I didn't like it, it was just, I just don't need to keep it around. Bad Girls with Perfect Faces by Lynn Wingarden. This is a really fun little YA thriller. If you want something that's really fast to read, highly recommend this one. It's kind of, I think, about catfishing, I think, from what I remember, but I do remember really liking this. I think I gave this 4 or 5 stars, I can't remember. But sometimes you just want a really fast-paced thriller that's like YA, that's just like right to the point. This is definitely a good one if you want something like that, you know what I mean? I just don't need to keep this around because I'm just not probably going to read it again, but it was a good book. Next is Critical Thinking Puzzles. I got this at Goodwill for 99 cents. And I thought this would be fun to do with my kids, and then I never really did it with my kids. I think I tried to do a couple of them, but they were just kind of like too easy for me, but too hard for them. And so then I just like never picked it back up and like did it again with them. So I'm just gonna get rid of it because I don't need it. And then next up is Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. As you guys know, I hated this book. I gave it 2 stars. This was the most boring romance book I've ever read in my life. And I love Tessa Bailey, but I hated this book. This had no romance in it. Like, if you're a romance girly, like you read romance because of the romance, this isn't going to be for you because this is all like sexual attraction. They like each other because they're sexually attracted to each other. They just want to like hook up. Like, that's the only thing driving their relationship in this story, and I literally hate that in romance novels. Like, I need a deeper connection in my romance novels, and this just did not have it, and this was so boring. I remember I didn't care all about like the side plot going on, and I hated this. I thought it was so boring, so this has to go. So that is it, you guys, for my book unhaul. These are just a lot of books that either I didn't like or I just liked, but I'm not going to reread again. But I'm excited to see how many books the bookstore lady takes, because last time I was able to get 4 new books with all the books I unhauled, so that was really, really nice. So that is it, you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys in my next one.